Hello, world, and welcome to the Innovation Coaching Podcast. My name is Klaus Hostel, and with me today is Robin Baker. Robin, tell me how I can help.
Hey Klaus, it's good to see you again. We've crossed paths a couple of times in the past and never quite landed the project we set out to do and things. So when I saw you were looking for guinea pigs for your early podcasts again, I thought, okay, why not? I think I could use a bit of help.
I like that. I like that. And yeah, we had a book project where we got some sort of started, but we never really got it off the ground.
So where I'm kind of looking for some help is, like you as a freelancer, my work is seasonal, particularly in the corporate training world where I work a lot. My work is very seasonal. January, February, after Christmas is usually pretty flat. And then usually March, April, May, June, it gets busier and busier and busier until the summer break. And then the same in the autumn. September, October, November, I'm on my knees by November because we're buried in companies trying to spend all their budget and so on. However, this year something different has happened. I've had no work in March. I've got no work in April. And so I've been trying to make the best use of this time, sort of starting to reach out to people through LinkedIn and look at building some of my own training programs and things. And it's a bigger mountain to climb than I thought it was going to be.
It's a huge mountain. Oh, I feel that pain. I feel that with you all too well. Okay, so that's the setting.
That's the set.
Tell me a bit more. That's the general. Give me some detail on this.
There's a few things. Is I don't handle rejection well.
Aha, let's park that and dive into that later.
Yeah, we can maybe come back to that, but that means that reaching out to people, even people I know, is hard.
That's tricky then. Very tricky.
Even people that I know pretty well, there is always a risk of no, because I'm talking to a lot of learning and development professionals, and they're kind of yes, okay, thank you, we'll get back to you, which I take as an immediate no. What you're selling us is garbage. Um, and then the other thing is it runs into the is what I've got good enough to sell?
Hmm.
And those two things kind of go hand in hand, which makes me I'm doing the work, but it makes me very slow and very not reluctant, but it is hard. Like I said, it's a hard mountain to climb. I think, okay, so today I'm going to reach out to 20 other people off of my list, and probably by the end of the day, I've done three.
And they all feel, no, I understand that. So let's look at that for a moment, because one, let's first get you out of that mindset, or at least change that a little bit. Now, that's of course a pretty grand thing to say. Let's just do that.
Yeah, let's just turn that off.
Yeah, let's just fix that, right? Let's just at least poke it a little bit, right? Because when you're in the room, you're good.
Yeah.
The problem is not when you're there.
No.
The moment you're in the room, it's fine. So it's not a matter of do you have enough skill, experience, whatever to do the stuff. That's good to clear, because sometimes we're in situations where we're simply not good enough and we try to pretend we are, we wish we were, whatever it is. Like I'm not good in a kitchen. I'm okay, but when it gets to a certain level of dish, I simply am not okay.
Yeah.
I can try, I can pretend, I might even try to sell it if I was desperate, but I know I'm not that good. When it comes to other things, I know I'm good. Can I sell them? That's different, but I know I'm good enough. So it's not a matter of your actual skill. Let's just cross that off the list to begin with. That's not where the problem is.
Yeah, yeah, and actually, I would agree with that. My ego allows me to agree with that. But also, so does a lot of if I look back across the last 12 months, all the training I did, the feedback from participants also says that.
Sure, it's not just your ego. It's actually also supported by other people's perception. So let's forget all about that thing and next ask, if you're good enough and you know you're good enough, why are you asking yourself if you're good enough?
If I could answer that question, I wouldn't be asking.
Aha. tell me how it feels. Tell me what sort of thoughts happens, because one thing is somebody says we'll get back to you and you think, okay, they're not going to buy, but that's a them thing. That's not a you, right? If I say, Robin, I've got this excellent course on tango dancing, you're like, I have no interest in tango dancing, Klaus. Then if I say, shit, he didn't want it, well, then it's you. It's not because I can't do it, it's you. And that's a different sort of rejection. It's still rejection, but that's rejection because of them.
Yeah.
That was one part, but you also mentioned you were worried, was it good enough? That's rejection because of you. Why do you have that?
Yeah, I mean that's rejection before I've even started, and
Yes.
I know this. I know from years of actually trying to teach people the same thing, and the hard part is when I look at it, when I look at some of the stuff I already do, and the programs I'm working on, my own programs are flavors of those things, and you kind of think, okay, so you take the first rejection, that's, in my head that was okay, so maybe they just, they don't have the budget, they don't have the time, all the things that we're hearing anyway.
Hmm.
But after the sort of the second or the third, you start to think, well, if they've actually started to read the outline for them, maybe it's not good enough, maybe it doesn't compare with the other companies, I wonder who I'm competing with. And the moment I start sort of then looking at the people I follow on LinkedIn who do very similar things, I start comparing their reach, their visibility, nothing to do with the actual product that
Hmm.
they're delivering. It's more, wow, this person is way more popular on LinkedIn.
Hmm.
And that almost becomes a scale by which I've started to measure that, I have to be up there with these people before people will start to buy from me.
Mm. So now we're hitting something, because what you're saying is actually not, you're not doubting your product or your teaching or your skill set. You're doubting your fame or your visibility or your reach or whatever, or your credibility, which is very different, right? So again, we've firmly established you're actually not, when it comes down to it, in doubt about what you're delivering. What you are in doubt about is A, is somebody better, which might be the case, right? And two, what you're definitely in doubt about, and that sounds like much more reasonable, does somebody else have a stronger online presence or better connections or more leads in a network, that sort of thing? Right? Because you and I might do the same thing, and we might do it equally well. But if you've got 100,000 followers on LinkedIn and I've got 10, then statistically speaking, you'll probably sell more of it, even if we're equally good.
But the interesting thing is that those people that I noticed I was doing that with are not even fishing in the same pond that I am.
Ah, okay. So now we're getting to the fun side, right? The slightly destructive side.
Yeah. I mean, they're not selling, online pitch training workshops in Poland.
No, 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 exactly.
They're selling, way bigger things in bigger ponds and things, and yet still it's kind of, I don't know. There is something there, and when you were looking for people to come and say, go on, I'll coach you live, I was thinking, okay, go on, put your head on the block and see what happens.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I like that. I like that. And I think that there's a little bit of, it's a little bit of symbolic of modern life. Let's take it out of you and more into the world. And what I mean by that is that one of the tricky things about the world today is that we have access to more information than ever. But it also means we can compare ourselves more easily. If you were living in a village in Britain in the 15th century, then you might be the smartest, funniest lad around. But the competition was the other people in the village,
Yeah.
and maybe those coming in from neighboring villages, right? Today, if you think, oh, I'm the funny guy of my friend group, then you're like, yeah, but there's also professional comedians that anybody can click on YouTube. So I feel I don't have to just be funnier than the others. I have to be funnier than whoever is your favorite online comedian. I have to be funnier than Eliza Schlesinger, and she's good, right? And you
Yeah.
have to be
Yeah.
skinnier than Britney Spears, and you have to be a better singer than Ed Sheeran, and you have to be all these things, because suddenly you can see you can compare yourself with people who you actually have no reason to compare yourself with.
Yeah, yeah, and it is certainly for me. It's become a bit intimidating,
Hmm.
almost. That you see regular posts and things, and I think, well, I've been saying that for years. That's nothing new. I've been teaching the people that for 12 years, and things, and yet I find myself going, so why am I not still teaching people this? And
Yes, yes. This is the juicy stuff, Robin. Thank you for coming with this. And to all of you out there listening, this is some of the stuff I enjoy because there's some things in here that maybe will unravel, maybe we won't, but we can at least address them. And one of them is, let's talk a little bit about imposter syndrome. Do you suffer from that?
do you know, I hate labels.
Good. Do you suffer from something that others might label as imposter
But
syndrome?
if I were to label it, then that's kind of what it would be, for sure. In one form or another, there is an element of imposter syndrome. Is what I have got good enough? Is my experience good enough? If I look at what are the qualifications for my role, and I look at my own historical qualifications at 61 years old, and I think I don't have half of those, and yet for the last 20 years I've been teaching communication skills
Hmm.
in one form or another.
And you're good at it.
Yeah.
Now, the first thing about this and about imposter syndrome is that for a lot of people, and some of this you'll probably recognize, and some of it will be not so much down your alley, is that for a lot of people, what imposter syndrome looks like is that they know objectively they're good enough if they kind of are honest with themselves. And other people say nice things about them. And like, it's not just ego, it's actually there is something there, whether it's their food or their coaching or their football skills, there's something there. But whenever they don't succeed, they miss the goal or they don't get the job or the food turns out to be weird, instead of immediately asking, oh, then was it because the ingredients were bad? Or was it because it was windy that day? Or was it because the goalkeeper was just that good? They immediately blame themselves. And one of the places where I see this the most is in job applications. And what you're talking about as a freelancer is a little bit of the same sort, is that, and you probably know these people, that they send in a job application and then they don't get the job, and they hear there's 100 other applicants, they don't get the job, and their immediate first reaction is, I should have written a better application.
I have a friend at the moment, a very good friend, who's going through exactly that. So every day he's firing off job applications, and he's used phrases like that. He's come to me and gone, "I have to write a better cover letter." Well, what's wrong with the one we made?
Exactly. And the thing is, most of us, when we look at it rationally, if you ask that friend and you say, well, maybe it's not your cover letter, maybe it's that they got somebody who's just better or more
Yeah.
suited or lives in the right place or qualifies for what or knows that there could be a million reasons that are outside his control, and yet his emotional go-to is, I failed, so I should have done better. Not, I failed, maybe I did a shitty job, maybe he did, right? Maybe the cover letter was terrible, but if it's something he's worked on, it's probably not that. It's probably more some outer circumstance, like one of the other 100 applicants might just have been better suited. And the tricky thing about this is that there is underlying imposter syndrome, underlying your friends, I should just have done better. There's a hidden form of arrogance that we don't talk a lot about. And it's the arrogance that is not looking at the world objectively and ascribing too much importance to yourself. With narcissism, it's saying, I'm the best at everything and nobody knows anything but me. If you've seen Donald Trump hold a speech, you'll notice that the things he's the best in the world at, there are a lot of them. He's probably the most famous global person right now who is, if not clinically diagnosed as a narcissist, sure has all the traits of one. And we can say that without even being psychologists, that this idea that even if reality says different, I am the best, I know the most, I am yada yada, everything is about me. Imposter syndrome is the flip side of that. It's saying, I'm the worst, or I'm not good enough, or I should have done better. That instead of saying, you know what, probably there was 100 applicants, the odds were low anyway, and I know I'm good, but they probably got somebody better, or maybe they didn't like my hairstyle, or maybe it counted against me that I was 44, or whatever it might be. Then instead they say, I should have written a better letter. I should have made a better pass. I should have been a better captain. I should have done. It's like it's taking on all the responsibility, which seems good. It seems good that we take full responsibility for our lives. Yes, but it's also arrogant bullshit. It's also saying, I'm the only one that matters here instead of the others, right? And the reality is there are many factors. You're one factor. If you try to get a gig from somebody, right? I just went through this recently. I had a nice thing lined up with a big company, and they were going to hire me for 5 talks, and there was some loose behind the scenes talk about a budget of 30,000 euros, and that would have been nice. I would have loved to do 5 talks at 30,000 euros. That's within my range. It was interesting, and I was looking forward to it. And I had a good meeting with them, and there was good chemistry, and they were excited, and I thought this was in the bag. And then I heard later from the speaking agency that no, it's not happening. And my first reaction was, oh, that's annoying, because I would have liked to do that. And my next reaction was, they probably found somebody better.
Yeah, no, this is the thing I have, because I've had conversations very similar. That, can we talk to you about doing a couple of workshops for us? And it goes 90% of the way there. And then that moment that they come back and they've told me, look, at the moment, because of the budgets are not signed off, we're about to change head of departments, and things that are perfectly reasonable, expected excuses, or justifications.
Reasons, yeah, sure.
That you go away, and in my head I'm still going, no, they found somebody cheaper.
But that's fair enough. I think the first thing we need to figure out is, are you as your friend? It's like it's about you. But let's first figure that out, because if it's not about you, if you think, oh, they found somebody cheaper, or maybe they found somebody better, or the guy's cousin turned out to be really good at it, so they thought they could do it that way. That's reasonable, because that's not something you can control.
Yeah.
That's just, if you do 1,000 of those, and then if 800 of them find other excuses or other reasons, then at least you're still left with some. So that's just a numbers game. But if we stay on that and say you don't blame yourself, that's the first thing I want to find out. Did you blame yourself? But if you don't do that, that's good.
No, I don't blame myself. I walk away with kind of what you said, like, damn, that would have been nice.
Yeah, but not okay, but that's good. So then, because then we don't need to use imposter syndrome tactics on this. That's not what's at stake here. Or with your friend with his cover letters, that's definitely what's at stake. Then it's a different question, which is, how do we make you be the best one in the pile?
Yeah, and I think this is an area where I'm beginning to struggle, because what I said about, I go to LinkedIn and I follow certain accounts. Say, all right, I follow the big names, but also follow a lot of smaller players, and you look and you think, well, they seem to be doing more, or they seem to have more of this, and I'm getting very analytical about them now. And now I'm starting to wade into a science that I don't have a lot of idea about. Getting into marketing myself.
Tricky stuff. But let's go with that for a moment. And squeaky chair. One of the things there is that the first thing to find out, first question to answer, and this is both a pricing and a marketing question, is, are you dealing with sophisticated clients or unsophisticated clients? And I don't mean, do they listen to Shakespeare and quote and drink rosé in the evenings? It's not that kind of sophistication, but do they know the market they're in? Because I'll give you 2 examples. That if you are somebody who, let's say you do conferences every year, and every year you book 20 speakers, then you'll probably have a pretty good idea of, what does this professional speaker cost within motivational speaking? What does this person do? Who are the hotshots? Who are the lowlifes? Like, what's the reasonable range? What's a good price? Who's got a good reputation? Who knows anything? That's the sophisticated customer. That's you when you go to the supermarket and buy milk. You know from, I don't know how many times you've been to a supermarket, but I guess you've been there once or twice.
One or two, yeah.
One or two, right? So it means that when you see a liter of milk and it costs £1.50, then you're like, okay, that's a liter of milk. I could buy it, I could not buy it. If you see one that costs 10 cents, 10 pence, then you're going to think there's something wrong with this milk. Or it's a promotion, or there's like, you're at least notice. And if you see milk that costs you £10, you're going to think this better be the best milk ever, because that's a crazy price. Because you understand. You also understand some of the signaling. Is it bio? Is it low fat? Is it, you know how to read milk expertly at the supermarket. You're a sophisticated customer. Now, let's imagine you're going to Japan. Great place. You're going to Japan. I assume you don't know how to read Japanese.
No.
Good. You're now in a store. It only has Japanese writing. There's no pictures. You have to order something. It only has Japanese writing. The only thing you have is writing and price. You're completely out to dry. Now suddenly you're an unsophisticated customer. All you can see is that this one costs more than that one. And maybe you can even see a picture of it, but you don't know, is this like nutritional superfood, or is this like basically the scum of the earth type of food? Like, you don't know because the packaging is foreign and the writing's foreign. And the only thing you have to go by now is the price. And that means you're going to assume the higher priced one is probably better, but you have no way of checking. You have no way of testing. You're just going on some very, very simple assumptions, and you know you're out there. Now, if you're selling mostly to people in category one, then it makes a lot of sense to know what your competitors are charging, who else is in the space. Are you a premium option? Are you a specialized one? Are you the knowledgeable but funny, or are you the very dry but serious? Are you like, you can position yourself within a group if somebody knows that group. In a classic school setting, if you're in a class, you can be the funny guy or the shy guy or the smart guy or the terrible guy or the violent guy, because you see everybody else and everybody else sees you. But if you suddenly go to a random city and I ask Robin, in New York, are you the funny guy or the smart guy? You're like, I have no idea. There's 8 million people here. I don't know where I am on this scale. It's the same thing with clients. So if you're mostly working with people who know what they're buying, then by all means look at what the market has to offer and position yourself in a good way there, right? Do you want to be premium? Then your prices better be premium. Do you want to be Ryanair? Then your prices better be cheap. And you say they're cheap. But if you're selling to the unsophisticated clients, if you're selling to the ones who are thinking, we need somebody to do some speaker training or some coaching or some workshop facilitation, and we just Google workshop facilitator Europe, and your name pops up, then they're not going to know what else is out there. They're going to take a look and say, okay, does this seem reasonable? Does he seem trustworthy? Is he within our price range, which might be £1,000? It might be £10,000. And no matter where you are, some people will find you extremely trustworthy and some people will find you completely wrong, whether it's because of price or you're an older white guy. That in some places will play to your advantage, in others it's not going to. But that's if you're dealing with the unsophisticated customers, the unsophisticated clients who are not choosing you against others that look like you, but they're thinking, should we have this guy, or should we go-kart racing, or should we instead take everyone to the cinema and give them popcorn? It's a very, very different choice. And that means, of course, if you are running into the problem of, oh, they found somebody cheaper, or there's a new strategy direction, or whatever it is, that's usually a sign of that your positioning is wrong. Or if not wrong, at least it's a thing you can change, right?
Yeah.
If you constantly get told you're too expensive, then either you might get cheaper. That's at least an easy way to beat price, or you might make it more clear why you're more expensive.
And I think that's an important distinction, because there is this temptation to just keep making it cheaper and cheaper and cheaper until somebody buys it.
Yeah, but they won't, right? Because you're not selling a commodity. If you're selling oranges, you're selling milk. If you make it cheap enough, somebody's going to buy that 10 pence milk, even if it says might be bad, toxic, and evil, there's still going to be a market for it because it's cheap enough.
Yeah.
Speaker training, there is no cheap enough speaker. Like lawyers, you don't want a lawyer that costs you £10 an hour.
Mm.
You don't trust them to do your legal stuff. You don't want an airplane that's like, oh, but you can get a cheaper one that doesn't fit the rules. There's a limit. There's a bottom bar there to clear, which puts you in the expert field. Now, the good news is that the field of selling expertise is very nice because it's not only about price and you can charge quite a lot. The bad news is that you can't just lower your prices and get more customers.
No, no, it doesn't work like that. That I have discovered.
Yes.
Um, that I have discovered. What you also have to accept is that for certain things, when you're asked, hey, can you give us an offer for doing this, this, and this, and you ask your usual 10 questions, you write an offer, you send it off, you have to accept they're likely, there's a risk they'll come back and say, this all looks great, but it's too much for us, too expensive.
And the worst part isn't that. The worst part isn't when they come back and say it's too much for us, because then you might be able to say, okay, tell me what could work.
Yeah, so what would work for you? Yeah.
The worst part is if they don't even come back, or they just say, sorry, we went another way, and they're thinking we'd like him, but he's too expensive. And they don't know you'd be willing to go down from 10 to 8
Yeah.
because you told them 10 because you'd rather have 10 if they have 15.
Absolutely, absolutely. I ran into this recently. Um, where yes, I heard then that they just didn't come back. Um, and I heard afterwards that the reason was it was based on price, and
Mm-hmm.
they just went in a different direction. I don't know whether it was a different somebody or they did it themselves or whatever. But to the person that I knew in this company, and I asked, so why did nobody actually say? Because we could have talked about the number if the shift wasn't too big, but we didn't get there. That was their kind of sort of,
You didn't get there,
yeah.
right? And that's tricky because on one hand, you want to signal, if we just talk price, you want to signal, I cost money because I'm actually good. And in our society, it's an easy way to signal that you're good. If you cost 10,000, then people say, okay, he must know something. But they might also say, yeah, we can't afford it, or we don't think he's that good, or whatever it might be. But it's there where if you say, well, I charge 10, but I'll do it for 5, then you're charging 5 and hoping for 10.
Then you're charging 5, yeah.
So that's what I do, except I do it even worse. I'm tricky because I work with, and I'm very honest about that, and anybody listening will know this is on my website. I work with many different people in many different industries, many different places in the world, and that means many different budgets. And I always tell people, sure, I'll do it. Tell me what the budget is. I'll say yes first. Tell me what the budget is. The only requirement I have is that if you have no budget, yes, you're paying for my flight and hotel, of course, if it's like a physical thing. But even if you have nothing, you at least buy me a good lunch. And some people say, oh, that's really nice because we have no budget. We'd really like you to come. So thank you for that. Some say, no, no, of course we have some. Here's 3,000 for what you're doing. And some say, oh, that's really great. We have 10,000 for this. That works. And the reason I do that is that I sometimes do work that's quite well paid, or at least I find it quite well paid, in the like 10,000, 15, 20,000 euro category for a day's work. And for most people, that's a lot. But I also understand not everybody has those budgets. And that means that while I prefer getting paid 20,000 a day, of course I do, I'm also open to getting paid 3,000 for a day. And by saying I don't say I cost 20, I say you tell me what the price is. And of course it means somebody will.
And there's another category.
Bingo.
Yeah. There's another category of work as well, which is the things that you want to do, you're excited to do, you've always wanted to do, that in the end, ultimately, the the price is
The icing on top, right?
yeah,
Yeah.
the fact that you're getting paid to do something you've always wanted to do, or work with a group of people you've always wanted to work with, is the bonus within there. Now, would you do it for free? Given a choice, no. but you'd certainly do it for a lot less than you would normally ask, just for that opportunity, you know.
just for that, right?
Yeah.
And I've found that I'm not saying you should copy it, but for myself, I've found that making it a us thing instead of a tug of war thing works quite well. And yes, I know I have clients where if I told them you need to pay 10,000 to get me as a speaker, and they say, well, how about five? And I say, okay, if you only have five, then we do it for five. And then they're secretly going, yes, we were willing to pay him 10, but he did it for five. Sucker. They probably exist, but I don't have a lot of them.
Yeah.
I have many more who say, you know what? I love that approach. Really nice. So nice not having to try to do the dance. We have this amount. We have 8,000. We have 2,000. We have 15,000, whatever it is. It's really nice to be able to work with you this way. And I say, great, lovely. And of course, if I only was getting, yeah, we've got nothing, then at some point I'd have to change that strategy, of course. And some things I do say, this is the price, take it or leave it, of course. But that's one option. Another is if you make it clearer, and I think that's where we are in like better value communication makes it easier to stomach a price. Right? What makes you different from anybody else who's doing something of the same? You have things, right? You have experience. You have 20 years of experience. For some, that's a huge value. But if the other is also at 20 years of experience, then okay, well, which of the vaguely similar guys do we choose or women do we choose? Where if you say something like, okay, well, I'm very experienced with working with speakers who don't have English as their first language. Oh, oh, that's interesting. Suddenly all the Brits are going to go, yeah, he's not my guy. And the Americans are just going to laugh. But the rest of the world is going to go, oh,
Mm-hmm.
oh, that's interesting. Or you say, I specialize in people giving talks to nonprofits, or I'm very good at coaching people who also stutter or who have whatever it is, right? The more you specialize, the easier it is to stand out. That imagine I have a 6-year-old, so we're doing a birthday party for her. If we were going outside to look for a birthday planner, like a birthday service, that sort of thing, and we knew that she likes Batman, and we had two choices. One was a birthday party company, and the other was a Batman birthday party company. Of course, we picked the second, right? They do the same thing. It's just one of them is more specialized,
Yeah.
which is a nice way to make it easier to understand why you're different, why you're unique.
What's getting me in the door with a lot of the people I'm reaching out to at least have a conversation, has been that in one form or another, I've worked for them or for their company before. So I'm a kind of known, I have a reputation,
Mm-hmm.
you know, and in some cases, you know, it's a good reputation and a great reputation and a very well respected and, you know, recognized reputation. In a couple of cases, it's kind of like, yeah, you did that for us before and it didn't go so well, so thank you, but no thank you. Okay, that's fine. I'll take that one on the chin and so on. But I've found that's what's getting me in for at least people to engage in the conversation.
Sure.
And that's a help. That is a huge help trying to go that way.
So let's focus on them for a moment. Let's say that if you already have some success in people where you already work with, like you working with known shall we say, clients, then if you're going back to the same people, right? There's one thing you can go back and say, I did this thing. Do you want me to do it again? That's an option. The other option is to go to somebody new who doesn't know you and say, I do this thing. Do you want it? And they say, who are you? Okay, that sounds interesting, or maybe not. Or you can go to the same people you know already and say, I did this before. I'm now doing this.
And that's where I've been going.
Yes. And how has that worked out?
Actually, it's gained a bit of traction. It still hasn't landed me any business out of it, but it is for me. I think the biggest thing is do they at least want to talk to me?
That's a good start, right?
Usually, this is the first time I've actually made concerted effort to be totally solo. Very often I've gone as an associate for other companies. You know, they've employed me as a trainer and sent me somewhere. So I know a
Mm-hmm.
lot of people out there. But now, a lot of the approach is, okay, look, you know me over here, but here's what I'm doing now. Here's the direction. Here's some of the things I'm offering, and it's beginning to result in a few quite interesting conversations. Hasn't come to anything concrete, but at least the fact that they're engaging, yeah, the fact that they're engaging in the conversation is giving me the confidence not to go, oh my goodness, they don't like it. I'm almost like you've presented your dish and you're waiting for Gordon Ramsay to give you his feedback.
Yes.
I'm not so afraid of that as I was,
Hmm.
but still the fear of the ultimate kind of not handling rejection, because if you get that far and then they say no, that's I feel very rejected, rather than it does depend on how they come back, whether they come back and go, look, we love this, we would love to take this, but here's the thing, and you get the corporate reasons as to why. Then, as you say, that's about them, not about me.
But I think there's a thing here, and I think that there might be a way out of it psychologically, because you're doing all the right things. I still think, of course, you might be able to, the new offer for the old people, you might be able to make that even sharper, right? If I'd come to you and said, Robin, I'm starting a new kind of way of coaching. And since I know you from before, do you want to pay me some money to be coached? You might say yes, or you might say no. But if I said, Robin, I'm starting a new way of coaching, and I'm beginning to coach men in their early 60s who are looking for career boost, suddenly you're like, that's more me, right? And if I said, you know what,
That's the guy I want to talk to. Yeah.
Robert, I'm starting a new coaching format, and it's aimed at other coaches who coach high level professionals. Then you're like, just take my money, right?
Yeah.
So that's the one thing, is that I think there might be, because you're getting the conversations, but if you can sharpen it even further, there's a good chance to jump to the, okay, how do I get that? And then they might still go, oh, we don't have budget, or the boss won't allow it, or whatever. But if you can get them immediately like, hell yeah, I want to do that. If you can get them to make that buying decision as early as possible, it might still not happen, but the will to go can be higher the more specialized it is, the more it fits them.
That's actually that's actually really interesting.
So that's
Yeah.
one thing I'd advise. The other is, I think that when you're going out and selling to them, I could be wrong here, but are you selling, I'm doing a new thing, or here's a new complete package you can take, yes or no?
No, it's most of the conversations I've had so far have been based upon the fact we already have a relationship.
Bingo. And there we have it. I'm glad I wasn't wrong here, because else I'd have to reframe the point I'm about to make. If I go to you and say, Robin, we've done stuff before. I'm getting out there. I'm reaching out to all contacts. I'm thinking of doing something. I was thinking maybe something like this. Then you might again be interested, or you might not. But if you say no, then I'm going to feel rejected, because you're rejecting me. If I go out and say, Robin, I've come up with this online course that's 30 minutes, and it's in the form of an online board game, and it's on Tuesdays at 5, and it costs £100 to be part of. Do you want the spot or not? And you're like, no. Then you're not rejecting me, you're rejecting that specific proposal, that specific online board game idea. Maybe you don't like board game. Maybe you think nobody can learn anything in half an hour. Maybe it's just rejection of me. But what I see it as, and what it is in the specific case, it's rejection of the idea. And there's a huge difference between saying, should we do something together, which is open and good, but when you say no, then it's hard not to take it personally,
Yeah.
rather than saying, should we write a book together, or should we go to France together, or should I get a lot of money for just singing for you on YouTube? Very, very different. And if you can, and I think that if you take those two things and combine them, one, more specialized, so it hits them harder. And two, if you don't try to sell you, but sell a thing you're doing, a specific format, it's a 1 hour workshop on confidence on stage, or it's a half an hour digital training and body language on meetings, or whatever it is. You
Yeah.
can't see us, but we were fooling around with like visuals here. I forgot for a moment there's no video. Thank you, host. But if you can do that, if you can say they're not buying you, they're buying a thing or something you do, then the rejection is much easier because it's not about you, it's about
It's about the thing itself.
a thing. It's about the thing. Yes,
Yeah.
the thing is from you. Yes, it still stings a little bit, but it's not, do you like me? It's like, do you like my painting?
Yeah.
And I can still love you to death while thinking that sofa you're trying to sell me, you're in the wrong country. I don't need a sofa. And by the way, I don't like the color.
Hmm.
That stings much less than, hey, Klaus, should we work together? No.
Yeah, that is so true. Those two things. Thank you for those,
Most
because
welcome.
those really are now. I think those were the pieces I just needed to go. How do I put this across differently? How do I still capitalize on the existing relationship? The
Mm-hmm.
existing relationship gets me in the door, but what happens next in the conversation, as you say, needs to be, here's this very special thing that I'm now doing, which means if they say no to that, they're not rejecting me as Robin. They're rejecting, actually, we don't do that kind of thing in our company.
Exactly.
Or,
Right.
yeah,
And to make it even more meta, and this is for all of the listeners out there who are already thinking this, how is it, Klaus, that Robin is on your podcast? It's because I said, here's the thing I'm doing. Do you want it or not? And Robin was one of the nice people who said, you know what? I want that. A lot of people didn't say anything. Some said, nah, that's not me. But I didn't care about that. I cared about the people who said, I want that. And it was very easy to say yes to or no to. But it also meant that if you'd said, hey, no, I'm not interested, or I don't have time, or that's not really, I don't want to share my stuff, or whatever it was, I wouldn't feel rejected. I just feel, okay, you don't like this thing. It's not about me. We could still be good, right?
absolutely. And the difference was if I'd seen someone else on LinkedIn that I don't have this existing relationship with, I probably still would have thought, maybe that's a bit too public. I don't want to, perhaps not.
Mm.
Whereas, you and I have crossed paths quite a lot. I've followed and read a load of your books and stuff that you do, and I thought, okay, I get another chance to have a conversation with Klaus for something that, for me, look what he's laying out. He's laying out my favorite sandwich.
And I think that thank you for that, by the way, very much appreciated. And I think that's what you have, that you have those relationships, you have that trust. And if you can serve them that favorite sandwich, then they'll be more likely to say yes. And if they say no, you'll know it's the sandwich, not the Robin.
Yeah, really, really.
Oh, pun coming on. It's the sandwich, not the baker. Ah, okay, that was terrible. But with that, when I get to bad jokes phase, it also means it's time to round off, and that works well with our time. Robin, before we say goodbye, I want to thank you, as I thank everybody on this, for having the courage to share publicly, because that takes nerve, that takes guts to say, you know what, not only do I have something I'm struggling with, I'm going to share it with the world. Thank you for that courage, number one. And the second is, I'd like you to, if you can, tell me three things that you take with you from our chat here together, both because I get to hear them and our listeners get to hear them, but also so you get to hear them, which makes them stick better as memory anchors.
I think number one is that the rejection is 99% of the time about them, not about me.
Yes.
And the number two is the first of these things that you said is, look, if you're gonna present a new way of coaching midlife coaches in their early 60s on, bang, is making it applicable exactly to the audience I want to target. Um, and I think the third thing I'm taking away is, um, it didn't take a lot of courage to come and do this.
Oh,
Um,
interesting.
it was like when I saw that you asked for the guinea pigs, I was all up for it. And I think that is a lot about, there's something about Klaus that I do really like. Um,
Oh, that's kind of you to say.
and I think that's what it is. I think I felt, even without knowing what was going to happen, I felt, okay, I'm going to put something out there that it may not be easy for me to admit, or maybe difficult to talk about at my age, my place in my career, and this kind of thing. But somehow I sense Klaus is going to create an environment where that's the safe thing to do, and something useful is going to come out of it. So I want to thank you the other way around in actually sort of creating this opportunity and opening it up to people. I think it's a really cool thing, and thank you for that very much.
It's very kind of you to say, and I can't say anything to top that, so I'm not even going to try. I'm going to let this be our closing remarks and say that you've heard Robin Baker and me, your host, Klaus Austin. Thank you for listening and have a great day out there.